believes. You can have an intense encounter with God when you wake up in the morning and when you're having breakfast and thinking about the to-do list that you have during the day. You realise that as you're thinking about that, God's not leaving you. The presence doesn't have to leave you. And so I think it's a really good example of a life key. But anyway, this morning I want to talk to you about hope is your anchor. Everyone say that with me. Hope is your anchor. Hope is your anchor. So we're going to start in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1. Then go to Hebrews. We've got a few other scriptures. And we're going to have a good morning. And do you realise that we are on the edge of something unbelievable? And as we were, just before I start reading, as we were playing this morning, I felt like,
just in case.
let me put it this way, I was reminded of when I was about 13 years of age. When I was 13 years of age, I was asked to play in the under-15 Golden Square cricket team because we had too many numbers in the under-13 and not enough in the under-15. And I can remember halfway through the season being a little bit discouraged because I'm playing against guys who are bigger, who are stronger, who are faster, who are better than what I was. And I just got this sense in me this morning. It was just reminded to me of those times. But in that moment, I remembered what my coach had said to me in that we picked you for a reason and you are actually good enough to play at this level. And as I was reminded of this, I felt God say to me, you realise that you are good enough to walk through whatever you're walking through. Do you realise that God has equipped you, He has called you, He has put His hand on your life so that you can walk through whatever you need to walk through to have victory and whatever you need to have victory near. So don't ever forget that. Don't allow discouragement to stop you from persisting in to seeing what God has for you. 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 2, it says, "We give thanks to our God always for you all, making mention of you in our prayers, remembering without ceasing your work of faith, your labour of love, and your patience of hope in our Lord Jesus Christ, in the sight of our God and Father." And I want to highlight three things this morning that I believe, as I was reading this last night, looking after my two nephews, I was reminded of previous messages that I believe have come out in probably the last 3 to 4 months. And they have to do with these three things. The first thing is your work of faith. I can remember hearing Pastor Jeff preach about and mentioning about, we have faith in something, but if we don't combine our actions to that faith, it's actually useless. If we don't do something with our faith, then in actual fact, nothing will change. The age-old saying I've heard many times before, if nothing changes, guess what? Nothing changes. I know it's deep. Well, you can tweet that, you can Facebook that later on, hashtag quote, delete, whatever. But remembering your work of faith. In other words, what you're believing for, there's steps that you can take, there's an action that you can perform in order to see and show God, hey, I believe what you've said. I think it's in Hebrews where it's mentioned, I think it's 11 or chapter 12 verse something or other, where it talks about Abraham proved his works by his actions. So proved his faith by his actions. In other words, all of these men proved what they believed by the actions that they took, not just by the words that they said. Words are important, don't get me wrong, but actions get stuff done. Actions get things done. So in that, by your work of faith, the next thing which I remember we've been hearing a lot about, but your labour of love. Labour of love. Now, whenever we hear that word labour, we don't often think of something that's lovely. We don't often think something that's pleasant. Labour. When I had to labour in my backyard to clear the bush, It was labour, and it was hard work. In fact, I broke my father-in-law's mattock doing it. Wasn't a good thing, but anyway, it's what happens when you can't see rocks and you hit them. Anyway. But you know, we've heard about, especially recently, and you know, we've heard a lot about, you know, the different, I can't forget his name. Keep your love on. Danny Silk, thank you. You know, keep your love on. Sometimes, when there's an issue going on, we have to deliberately decide to love, which can be laborious because we don't feel like it, in order to show or to give the response that we know we should. Labour of love. It's really important. You know, we provide actions to our faith. We understand that we always have our love on. No matter, even if it's easy to do or whether it's difficult to do. You know, it's easy for me to love my wife when she's been away for 2 or 3 days and I miss her. It's not as easy to love her when we have a disagreement and I feel that I'm right. Usually I'm not, but that's a different story. This labour of love, and it's not to be something, you know, it's not to be something that we have this negative feeling towards, but it's about something, you know, I am being mature, I'm growing in my faith and in my ability to love others even when they tick me off. Okay. And this last part, which we have heard a little bit more recently, this patience of hope. You know, hope is so critically important in a believer's walk. It is so critically important in a believer's walk. And I want you to turn to Hebrews chapter 6. We're going to have a look at this a little bit more this morning. This subject of hope. Hebrews chapter 6. And I'm going to start at verse 13. And we'll go down to verse 20. So bear with me because I have to read this like 17 times to actually get it all. So just bear with me this morning. Hebrews chapter 6 verse 13 says this. For when God made a promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater name, he swore by himself, saying, surely blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply you. And so, after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. For men indeed swear by the greater, and an oath is confirmation, is for them an end of all dispute. Thus God, determining to show abundantly to the heirs of promise the immutability. I had to look that up last night because I was trying to read it out and I don't even know what that word means, so I better actually know what it means. You know what it means? It means unshakable, unchanging, no ability to, no altering. It is what it is. In other words, it's the final word on the matter. Of his counsel confirmed it by an oath, that by two immutable things in which it is impossible for God to lie. Did you catch that? It is impossible for God to lie. We might have consolation, thank you, who have fled, who are few for refuge to lay hold of the hope set before us. Verse 19. This hope we have as an anchor for our soul, both sure and steadfast, and which enters the presence behind the veil, where the forerunner has entered for us, even Jesus, according to the high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. I want to just read verse 19 again. It says, this hope So in other words, everything that we've just read comes down to verse 19 and verse 20. This